it's best to go live when it's time to go live. It's your boy, Tipsy Japan, back with another episode of A.T.A.S. Across Time and Space. Got my co-hosts.
Ace. From Cross Culture, been doing a lot of work with my boy TPC Japan, Tipsy Japan, because that's what it is. That's what it is. I know that a few people have been asking about, the podcast, when is it going to be audio? When is it going to be available? It's available. What? Yeah, it's available through a Spotify link. Tipsy, did you put it in the description or no?
It'll be in the description. It will be in
or at the very least in the pinned comment, right?
We'll make sure you get your links up there. Yeah, and matter of fact, yes, as we're talking right now, the executive producer is working on that. All right.
Oh no. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I don't
we're live.
Take the shine too much because I know that you're hosting, but for those who are listening, actually listening to the podcast as we're talking about the podcast being live and all that good stuff, good on you. Definitely try to reach out to us. Either one of our YouTube channels, if you want to see some of the other stuff that we're making, definitely interact with us and try to catch the live stream so that you can actually be a part of the podcast before the podcast is even a podcast. I'll say podcast one more time. All right. So
I'm sorry.
Hit it.
No, I just made the mistake of listening to myself over on the YouTube channel. Yeah, check us out. We're live this week on TPC Japan at YouTube. So, you can find us there. Next week, you can find us on Cross Culture. And that's basically how we do it. Every Friday, 12 o'clock Japan Standard Time, which is noon here. On the East Coast of the U.S., that means 10.
For daylight savings. Yeah, like 10:30, 10:30.
10 p.m.
And then if you're on the Pacific Coast, that's 7:30.
Yeah. All right,
PM. So just across all the time and space.
Yeah. But I guess it's all PM now.
Yeah. It was all PM before.
It was all PM before.
It's 12 for you, 12 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then instead of 8 p.m., it's now 7 p.m. for me. So,
right.
Yeah.
So that works. In fact, it's better for my folks on the East Coast because it was too late before.
11 o'clock.
That was rough. What we're doing now, though, we're going to make sure that everybody has access to this. And anyone who wants to join the stream, now we have a link that's out there. Excellent. What we usually do on the show is talk about the issues and topics and things that are important to us at the time. One hot issue on my mind has been this book by Ta-Nehisi Coates called The Beautiful Struggle. It's been hot on my mind because I'm fading in, fading out. No, that's how hot it is. It's been hot on my mind because of a lot of the race-related issues and a lot of the kind of conflict that we see in the States right now, which is it's interesting, to see that from a distance. People ask me in Japan, what's going on in America. They see police violence, they see black on black violence, they see political unrest, and supposed to be our country is supposed to be, a beacon of hope. I think in a world that, for the most part, has been established on kind of traditional values rather than on the current will of the people, and as the democracy in the center of the world. We're supposed to lead the way, and I feel like sadly, we've lost our way from time to time. And right now, we might be in the middle of one of those seasons where it seems like America had lost its way or is trying to find its way. And it's kind of embarrassing, when the whole world is watching you get changed. It's just like, oh, well, you weren't supposed to see that.
Oh, gosh.
But that's what the internet will do. And that's what globalism will do. That's what, I don't know, climate change will do. When you see things heating up over there and you realize, wow, that's affecting you over here. So yeah, I think there's a convergence of ideas and there's a synthesis that needs to be made. And right now we're trying to find that. So bear with us, and as we live life and experience these things and talk about these things and process these things, it's important to open up the dialogue to our brothers and sisters across continents, all right, and across communities. So and across faiths as well. Like, this is not just a matter of, okay, well, this is a religious podcast or this is a secular podcast. No, everyone has their everyone has their values. If I come in too close, I don't want to deal with it.
Boom! Don't make your point. You're too close.
Yeah. If you find that some of our positions may be different from yours, that's absolutely fine. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's bring those things out. But understand where we're coming from. Understand where our ethics. And I think we can both kind of speak from this point a bit, but our ethics come from, traditionally religious or strongly spiritual households. And in our community, it's very easy to get lost without that. Be lost, no direction whatsoever. So
hold on, give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
He'll be right back. Just talking about the importance of being spiritually grounded. It's quite it's interesting. It's an interesting place to be. Our not host, but our book that we're focusing on this month, A Beautiful Struggle, was written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he mentions that his family is not religious at all. In fact, that wasn't allowed. But then there's a spiritual element to his background, his father's respect for the ancestors and his belief of where Black people came from and where they should be going, a certain direction. There is a spiritual element to that. When we look at Black Lives Matter and the people who lead that organization, not the movement, but the organization, we find that they're very spiritually driven. It may not be by Christian values, but they have a spiritual element to them. And people have a spiritual element. They can either just try to keep it on the side and not address that, try to think about things logically, which may be one of their personality traits. They tend to like to think about things logically, but at the end of the day, 96% of the planet believes in something. We're not just flesh, and not just animals, they're just trying to survive. So the vast majority of people believe in something, whether they acknowledge it or not. We tend to acknowledge as having a Christian background and a Christian programming that's the lens through which we try to look at things and make sense of it. And you can look at it however you like. Yeah, go ahead. Just
to jump back to that, because I know that our spiritual lens, our moral compass is deep rooted in a theologic Christianity, monotheistic faith. But it can be said that the idea of wellness, having like peace in every aspect of your life, is a secular one. And it
Yeah.
has come up that there's 8 areas of wellness, and spiritual wellness is one of them. And it's not to say that you have to have a faith or you have to be part of a religion, but it's to know that the earth doesn't revolve around you, to know that there are people who your actions will affect in one way, shape, or form. And for you to take responsibility of your choices and how they will affect those around you is a part of the spiritual wellness. And this was a secular study. People that believe that there's something outside of themselves, that there is hope in the universe, these people are better off versus those who are looking at their the dash between their birth and death as just that, then they're a little worse off. It's being optimistic versus pessimistic, and that little bit can change your whole outlook on life, and all of your decisions will be skewed one way based on it's if I'm optimistic, hey, if you're atheist and you believe that it's your God-given right to do whatever you want, or well, not God-given right, but it's your right to do whatever you want, and you're just gonna smoke, drink, blow all your money, cool. But I've also met atheists who are saying, well, I know that there isn't a God, and the fact that I only have this one life to live, I need to leave this earth in better condition for those who are coming after me. So it's not to say, oh, atheists are bad because this is not, like, no, it's your mindset, period. There are bad Christians just as there are good atheists. We have to be willing to listen to both sides of the argument, whatever side of the line you may be on, but open that lane of communication. Because if we don't, then we're all just going to be in our own little bubbles and nothing will ever get done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, some people, I guess, in terms of spiritual following or spiritual faith or religion, it almost feels like that's one of the few things that you can choose. If you can. I have a very hard time making that choice to say, I'm just going to turn my back. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I know people who would say, okay, I'm converting from one thing to another thing. I don't know. That's quite different from the programming that you get, the social programming that you get. If you're born and raised white, you can't change from being Caucasian to something else. Like, that doesn't really work.
People have tried.
Yeah, no. And I mean, they've done some interesting experiments where, like, I don't know, someone puts on blackface and does their hair up a certain kind of way and try to, blend into, like a black community, for example. And, white people treated that person different, and black people treated that person different. And whether they treated them like they were part of the community that they were attending to blend into is something that I would take a look at, but they definitely were treated in a different way. And over time, that can affect your mind. It can be very enlightening, to see what it's like being as a part of a different community. But I mean, you could say the same thing for folks who change their sex. Like they are experiencing life through a different lens than what they grew up with up to that point. And it's not easy to make that switch. I think it's easier to make the religion switch, but still, some circuits, according to another audiobook that I'm listening to recently, yeah, it's a really good one. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to plug that one, but some circuits stay lit. Wow. We'll talk about that. We have to talk about that one. This book is amazing. I keep talking about the next book. All right, let's talk about this book. All right.
Okay. Yes, let's do that.
chapter 7. It's I'd say a chapter of transition. Be a good name for it.
Chapter of transition. I can see that a little bit. You know what? One of the biggest things I have a problem with is that this book doesn't seem consistently linear. And for my feeble mind, it's just like, okay, you know, I kind of want to go from point A to B to C to D and E, but sometimes the timeline jumps from A to D, then back to C, and it's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen transition all through the book, but it's kind of weird.
Okay. Yeah, I you know, I don't know if the chapters don't have titles, you know, so you just got to go into the next chapter. But transition works for me because I see again this kind of transition. We talked about rites of passage before, but this is really, we see a transition in Big Bill, which is the author's older brother. And we also see he's becoming a university student in full right, but he also comes back home. And some of the teachings that his father had when he was younger and when he was on his back about things, we see those teachings start to come to fruition in his life. You know, he's about the culture and about the knowledge, and he's not just ruining his life, kind of acting as a child would, you know. But at the same time, you know, he's in the back like smoking with his buddies and talking, but they're talking about the knowledge, right? It's not that smoking it in and of itself is, you know, something that people need to be locked up for. It's part of life. It's just a part of life, you know. And we see that kind of same attitude with Ta-Nehisi's dad and his other women on the side. That's a part of life. It's not like he's following his moral code. He's not breaking his moral code by you know, engaging with these other women and having, you know, multiple children by them. That's what it is, you know.
I mean,
and
so much so that his wife knows about it.
Yeah.
Like when that scene hit me like 12 Ways to Sunday. It was a very strange scene. So Ta-Nehisi is in the car with his father, and they're on the road, and then he just kind of pulls off to the side. It's like, yeah, so I'm in love with this other woman. Me and your mother thought that you should know. It's like, what? Hold up. She's okay with this? She knows? And then basically he offers himself up as a sacrifice. Like, yeah, well, what do you want to say about it? You know, and Ta-Nehisi's talking like, well, he doesn't say this out loud, mind you. He's like, I never felt anger towards my father, but my fear kept me from saying anything. It's like, oh man, it just kind of hit hard. You know, those times where you're just like, where you feel that your parents give you an open lane of communication, but the relationship up to that point hasn't been open. It's like, if I say this, am I gonna get smacked across my mouth though?
Yeah. You know, he said basically like he had the opportunity. He saw his father like in his weakest point. It's his chance to take a shot, but he didn't go for it. You know why? That's that fear. You know, and I think that again, going back to the religious tip, like that way of thinking is very hard to break from. Like, you know, respect your parents and you know, that is a type of programming, and you call yourself reprogramming and doing things your own way. Like it's not really easy to just come up with something else, you know, other than the default, especially at that young age.
I mean, it's easier at the younger age, but still, you know, you talk about neuro-linguistic programming, we could go into the brain chemistry and all of that. It's like the older you get, the harder it is to reprogram your own mind. But still, if you're a kid and you're afraid of your parents, things is basically just locked in. Like, no, this is my parent. They can beat me. So,
Mm,
Let me not try to step out of line too far. And that, of course, kids test boundaries and all that good stuff,
mm,
but it's only to see kind of the pecking order, where
mm,
where do I fit into this society that is my household?
mm-hmm. Now, one thing that I noticed, and I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but yeah, when you talk about that, get a beating, and you know the importance of the rod.
Mm,
You know, um, for the generation directly before mine, it was a matter of course. You know,
mm.
um, in our community at least, like yeah, the belt, yeah, switch. They called it a switch.
Oh,
Not this
not
switch.
Nintendo.
No.
No, no, no.
Yeah. It was. What is a switch? What's your
It's
image
a
of a switch?
it's a branch, not one that's so brittle, but
Mm,
one that's
mm,
more flexible, so
yeah.
that you can. And I think
Yeah.
that might be the where the name switch comes from, just from the sound of it cutting through the air.
Yeah. It probably is. It
Catch it.
probably is. It sounds like a German root word going on there.
Oh, I don't know. Switch.
The switch. The switch. Streisand. It's
Oh
whoop,
gosh.
light them up. But yeah, so that type of corporal
Mm,
punishment was and is still considered a valid way and a valid part of child rearing.
mm.
And parents use, I know my parents use the Bible as justification, for their
Spare
actions.
not the rod. Oh
Spare
God.
not the rod. It's in there. You can't get rid of it.
Oh God.
But so my question is though, for young parents, maybe some of our listeners are young parents, um, you could be listening right now or listening sometime in the future. As of
Mm,
2021, is corporal punishment necessary? That was part of our education system. Home education. We were um, on the receiving end, but
mm.
now on the delivering end, isn't there a better way? And if there's a better way now, shouldn't there have been a better way back then?
Well, the thing that you have to think about also is that for any topic, research is being done currently, and you may
Mm,
not see the fruits of that labor
mm,
until a couple generations down. Like there is a study in Fitchburg, Massachusetts in the 60s talking about how we shouldn't be eating so much red meat.
mm,
And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, people were still eating a ton of red meat. And then the 2000s, people were just like, oh, well, I guess we need to look into alternative protein sources and, more lean meats and all this stuff.
mm, mm,
So the fact of corporal punishment was like, for a lot of it, our parents and their parents and their parents maybe didn't know better,
mm.
but instead of breaking the cycle, saying, does this really have to happen? Questioning it,
Yeah.
it didn't really happen. So I feel like for our generation, we we got to a point where we hit a stride of more of empowerment. In
Mm,
schools, you're like, oh, you can be anything that you want to be. You have minority scholarships and things like that to try to even the playing field. And we are seen now not as just a statistic, but
mm,
something, a vessel to pour knowledge into so that we can have the same, so that everybody can have the same.
mm.
And the thing about corporal punishment, I mean, it used to be allowed in schools and then it wasn't. So what was the breaking point there? Um, I do feel, and to a certain extent, if a kid's gonna touch a hot stove, I'd rather be the one hitting them than them burning their hand. And if they associate pain with the response, hopefully they don't do it, because our brains are wired in the sense that we're not going to do something that's going to cause us self-harm, usually. But there are better ways. Like, because I'm trying to stop that cycle. My mom, she used to curse, beat me, all manner of things, right? And I didn't realize until more so when I was older, like what she was going through, the place of love that she was trying to pull it from.
That was her
She
language.
didn't want me to be on the streets. So, hey, I'm going to discipline you here so that the cops don't discipline you down the line, type of thing. And I can recognize that now, but when you're going through it, it's rough. It's really rough. But there are other things, of course, timeouts, but I feel like the progression has been, corporal punishment, with a switch, or the belt, to timeouts. And now I'm reading a lot and seeing a lot of people talking about more things like time ins. So
time in.
Instead of
he's talking from a father perspective here. I don't know what a time in is.
Yeah, it's hard to implement, because usually when you see your child acting up, you're just like, oh well, you need to go collect yourself, and that can still work. I was speaking to a family, not psychologist, but a family counselor, and he was talking about how we need to leverage our child's wants against them. So, oh, you want to go to the birthday party? Then you need to clean your room. And instead of not going to the birthday party, we say, okay, we're going to go to the birthday party, but you're going to have a 5-minute timeout when we get there. So that leverages, and 5 minutes at a birthday party is an eternity. So that leverages their own wants against them. It's like, well, if you want this, then you're going to have to do this. But the time in is more of a conversation. So instead of telling your child, go be in your feelings, you pull them aside, you do something that they like to do. So maybe it's like patty cake or singing a little song or like playing with some stuff. You meet them where they are.
Let's clarify that for the audience. So the child has done something incorrect. Improper.
Yes.
They've broken the rule.
Yes.
And now I'm going to give you what you like.
Not necessarily a reward, but you're going to meet them where they are. So, playing with toys. I'm not saying like, oh, you did something wrong. Here's $5. No, you want to meet them where they are. Just as Christ met us where we are, and we did all manner of things against him. We need to be able to meet our children where they are, to be able to say, okay, I didn't like when you did this. Why did you do it? What was the reasoning behind? Were you like, Sophia loves running through the house. It's my daughter, Sophia. She loves running through the house. And I'll stop her and say, hey, why are you running through the house?
You stop her from running? You're going to stop her in the
No,
running, or are you going to run along with her?
No, not run along with her. But I mean, that's an example where you can't really meet them where they are because you can't run with them.
Yeah, no. I mean, the thing is, I'm teaching kids that are around, her age, and I think teaching is a good way to prepare for some parts of parenthood, because you're watching somebody else's kid and you're trying you're trying to get them to do something that they don't want to do at first, trying to make it fun, right? And try to make it educational. And that's what the first teachers at home do, right? But some of these kids, they're up on the table trying to get, what are you doing on the table? You want to, should I get up there on the table with you? What's going on, buddy? Yeah. And just trying to be a pal. I don't know about that.
But it's the thing. If your child always sees you as a disciplinarian, there's always going to be that fear,
Fear that parent. That's not a Bible verse.
That's not biblical.
Honor thy father and thy mother. Hey.
That their days may be long upon the earth. Yes.
Yes.
But how would they honor you if they're always afraid of you? And that's where you have to think about it. That's all.
That is all. All right. If they are in awe, all right. Reverence, fear.
No.
Perfect love casts out all fear.
All fear. Yes.
Right. So they
but
say.
They might not be able to get there. Because, I mean, let's take your example. Kids jumping up on the table and you're trying to teach them. So instead of getting straight back to the lesson, why don't you just sit them down? Hey, how are you doing today? Try to take a little bit of break out of the lesson and let them know that you're there for them. And that's basically what the time in is supposed to be. That you're not just, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. Or you're more so, I'm here for you. I understand that you're going through something, but I don't understand how I can fix it. But what I can do is this. And whatever that this is, you have to kind of curb their attention and energy towards it. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm nowhere near a perfect parent. And I will be the first to say that I have thought that I'm a bad father more than once. But in that, you get this sense like, okay, well, if I know that I'm bad, then that means that I can improve. And if I can improve, then I should improve. That type of thing.
Interestingly, it's interesting that you say that. And I'm thinking about Ta-Nehisi's father's reflection on his own parenting. And I wonder if he went through that. If he went through that reflective phase. I wonder if Ta-Nehisi's father did more than enough. Like
very
even being
relationship.
Even being a bad father kind of makes the child, it gives the child an image of what a good father should be like. All right, it shouldn't be like this. Isn't that enough? And maybe, after all the parenting is done, you can have that conversation if you survive and just say, hey, I know things were rough when we were kids or when you were a kid.
We were kids.
But, I had to do things that way in order to prepare you for the world. And, I'm sorry if I was overly harsh, but it was coming from a love place. That's a conversation that I had with my dad after the heavy lifting was done, I'd say. And he broke down, just like you were saying that, sometimes you felt that you're, being a bad dad or whatever. Like, you can't even say to your kid that, I feel like I'm being a bad dad right now. You can't say that.
No, not at all.
Nope.
Then everything crumbles apart, right?
Then everything crumbles apart. What's your problem? Like, yeah, no. You have to at least be a good actor. And actor can play different roles, but it is a bit of an acting thing, especially in the beginning, because, as anyone knows, when you step into something that you're not necessarily experienced in, but you have the responsibility and the authority in that case, you act as though you know what you're doing.
Make it till you make it.
Right. And use people as a resource, but as far as those under your protection or under your control, whichever one you want to call it, they need to know that or at least they need to feel that you know what you're doing. And that means first that you don't say that I have no idea what I'm doing. Guys, help me out. No. Yeah. This is the way things are going to be. And we can make adjustments going forward, but for the time being, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. So for the time being, that's as far as we can go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Our show is, it's a 30-minute show. There's a lot to say in the chapter. Let's wrap it up in 10 minutes. I don't want to just, let this thing unfold and develop, and then I have to just crash it down for the audience.
All right.
What
All right. You wanna hit
there?
one more point, or
Yeah, let's hit one more point. But I mean, I don't want to hit the point from the book. I wanted to talk actually a bit about um, another author. Her name
okay,
is Africa.
Africa.
Yeah, she's from London.
Okay.
Uh, it's a young black woman. She's a prolific writer, and
Okay.
she was talking about stepping away from the cult of don't lose it. Stepping away from the cult of um I don't want to say the cult of Black Lives Matter because that's not exactly what it was. Let me just make sure I give it to you guys direct.
The cult of Afrocentrism.
Yeah. Oh wait, you already read it.
No, but it's something that I have wrestled with. Being black or acting
Mhm.
white. Those things. So I can understand where she's coming from, but I haven't heard of her. Woman named Africa from London.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she has this awesome conversation with an anthropologist about an
Mm,
experience that she had. Um, Basically, she embraced, and I'll just give you guys the short of it, and I'll leave a link on the YouTube page for the live stream. But basically, to sum it up, she had this experience
mhm,
during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, where, and I think we did too. And that's why I want to bring it up. Basically, she felt that because she's a prolific or relatively popular writer, she has an opinion and people follow her.
mm,
She was kind of approached in a way that it's like, okay, this is what the narrative is right now during Black Lives Matter. If you're talking to Black people, all right, it's about, mobilize and, you know, make sure you tell your white friends that this is the situation and, Black Lives Matter. And if you don't realize that what your race is doing with this whole kind of not white supremacy, but white privilege and all those things,
mm.
then, you need to let them know that they're living on privilege and they need to apologize with their ancestors for
Oh
what their
wow.
ancestors did, all that time. And realize that they're, just a product of that, a product of being the winners from slavery and all the negative
Mm,
things associated with that. And, she found herself in that place. And it's a similar place to, I think, where my little sister would be because she was about 24, 25,
oh, okay.
Africa. And, my sister's about 23, 24 about now. And, you know, like that was at the height of the Black Lives Matter thing. That was a bit of a narrative that you saw a lot of, if, for example, you see Black Lives Matter and somebody asks you, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? Like, do you just say, like, at that time when maybe you didn't even know much about it?
Hmm.
If somebody says to you, Black Lives Matter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, they do, right? What's going on in America? Why are all these people um protesting? Like, and it was a national outcry. Like, you saw the neck on it, or the knee on the neck, and it's just like,
Oh gosh, yeah,
this is how ugly our country is. This
yeah.
is so at a time where you could say that this is how ugly people are. It was more like this is how ugly racism is in America. And if you're white, you need to acknowledge that racism is a major problem. And if you're black, you need to cry out that it's unfair and we are the victims of this thing. It needs
Yeah.
to stop.
I mean, then you have everybody else on the opposite end of the spectrum saying, "Oh, well, all lives matter." It's like,
Mm,
yeah, we're not saying the movement for Black Lives Matter isn't saying that
mm,
only Black Lives Matter, but
mm,
somebody kind of I don't think they oversimplified it, but they simplified it enough to
mm,
where there was a fist, for each race, and there was a bar graph, and it's like the actuality, and it was like the white fist was like all the way up here, and then there was some brown fist, and then black fist, like way down. And then it's like what we want, and then everybody's fists, were even. It was like a bar graph type thing, and that's kind of what it should be. Like, we shouldn't have to worry about acting black, or dumbing down our blackness in order to fit in. Now, there are things that are professional and non, but that's a whole different area. For people to judge you based on your name of all things. I know I know a couple people who had ghetto sounding names and have changed them so that they can be taken seriously in the professional realm, simply because they think that if somebody were to see that name on the page, that it would, oh, let me put that into the circular file, that type of thing. And that's just where it is. And now, because of everything that's been going on, this outcry comes out, not because of an isolated incident, but because of years and years and years of not just people being racist, but the system supporting people being racist, the systemic racism. So it's more than just the people, it's the whole system.
Right. And this is a huge topic, and I unwrapped it right at the end.
We gotta cut it. We gotta cut it. No, you're right.
No,
we gotta cut it.
It's not done. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. I wanted to.
Okay.
No, we're not done yet. I wanted to give the name of this author and the and a link basically to that information, but it's called "Leaving the Cult of Wokeness." Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I see.
Leaving the Cult of Wokeness. Right. And it was with Africa Brooke. And the point was that she was at this point in her life where she got so much support for embracing what Black Lives Matter and white lives are overprivileged, and this needs, you have to change the narrative and fix the situation, like, by calling out this thing as racism for what it is. And like wokeness, all right, wokeness. So what happened to her was that a person approached her on Twitter and said, "Hey, do you think that the way that you're doing things is the right way to do it? Like, is this the best approach to fixing the situation?" And instead of responding to that person as a human being, and she just saw him as a white man, asking her why she needs, do I need to educate you? And what she did was she copied his statement, brought it to Twitter and all her followers, and instantly like 7,000 people were right there saying, "He can't say that to you. Da, 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 da. No, Africa, blah, blah, blah," and building her up and lifting her up to this place where I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is euphoria, but it's also disgusting. She was disgusted with herself and her response to this guy, Yeah, I know. Wow. You need to listen to this whole thing. It was an hour-long podcast. Yeah. It was awesome. It's called Leaving the Cult of Wokeness. And essentially, the place where she was going with it is that, the place where the co-host, this anthropologist, Jordan Peterson's father, apparently, he called out this thing as was it identity bias or in-group bias? That's what it was. In-group bias.
In-group bias?
Yeah. In-group bias is the tendency for all animals, just about every creature, to have a bias for other members of the same group.
Okay.
All right.
Birds
So
of a feather. Yeah.
right. Birds of a feather, like in-group bias. Let's bring that up on screen. And basically what that means is there was this study done in like the 80s or 90s, late 80s. And it was saying that there were these chimpanzees that would, go on a raiding party. They would go to a different camp. And if they found that there were more males or less males there than in their camp and that they could take them, then they would take them. They would kill all the males and, kill the females and take over the camp, take all their food. And, I've talked about this with my mother, and it's like, it's not racism, it's evil, and evil is everywhere, even in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's where she took it right away. I wasn't ready to take it there, but I did have to acknowledge that there is something called in-group bias. There's a tendency to favor people who are in the group and to see people who are outside of the group in a negative light, or different is negative. And like, I really want to get into that with you.
The us versus them mentality.
Yeah. It's us versus them. And, okay, so, when you look at like the politics or whatever, like if you see it through this lens of, okay, in-group bias and people trying to protect, folks in their same group, it's like one political party tends to lean towards in-group biases, whereas the other one is like almost accepting everything else, the everything else. It doesn't matter what. All right. And it's like we want that freedom, and we want to be accepted, right? But sometimes the reason why people vote one way or another is because there's a cost, and that the cost is usually a traditional values, and those traditional values are based on an in-group bias. Make America great again. There's this image of what America was like once upon a time for a certain group of people, and for them, they want to hold on to that. And I get it, because we all have in-group bias, and we all want things to be like the best part of our childhood.
And nostalgia and romanticizing the past. Yeah, there's a lot there.
There's a lot.
There's a lot there.
I always get here one way or another by the end of the day. And man, we're going to talk about that. We're going to unpack that.
We have to.
All right.
Yes, because we only have 2 more chapters for this book, so we definitely need to make sure that we have something else lined up. We're going to freestyle a couple episodes, or we're going to jump into that, or what?
Yeah, no. There's I've been through 2 or 3 books since we started this podcast.
You just got stuff in the chamber.
I've burnt through 2 or 3 books, but I really want to talk about the content of them. Oh man, yeah. I mean, I've been talking about Dr. David Jeremiah. We can talk about him next time too. Oh yeah. It's a wild ride. But thank you for joining and watching the show, and for your comments that are either on the YouTube page or on the Facebook page, or maybe in the comments on the way. All right. This is Across Time and Space, the podcast that, we talk about the topics affecting our space across time. It's your boy TPC Japan saying that's what it is.
It's your boy Ace. Until next time, stay prayed up and be blessed.
Peace. Did it again.